I don't want you conniving money. Money, neighbor, money, money, neighbor, money, money. You can keep your conniving money. When you've been a corrupt, you have been tell me money. Now because your money done, you come with conniving money. When you had your pocket full, you have been tell me money. Now because your money done, you hustle for tell me money. Yes, money, neighbor, money, neighbor, money, money, neighbor, money, money. Now I don't want you conniving money. Neighbor, neighbor, joker, neighbor, neighbor, joker, neighbor, neighbor, joker. That's all the money that me walk. A 2 pound note and a kill that piece. A 2 pound note and a kill that piece. A 2 pound note and a kill that piece. This is all the money that me walk. I said money, neighbor, money, neighbor, money, money, neighbor, money, money. I don't want you conniving money. Oh, Joseph, for me. Oh, Joseph, for me. Oh, Joseph, for me. Get a piece. 1 bunch green plantain, 1 string quackwari, 1 Jill black pepper. All you can buy with a Gilda piece. Yes, money, neighbor, money, neighbor, money, money, neighbor, money, money. I don't want you conniving money. When you been a corrupt home, and I been tell me money. Now because your money done, you come with conniving money. When you had your pocket full, and I been tell me money. Now because your money done, you hustle for tell me money. Money, neighbor, money, neighbor, money, money, neighbor, money, money. Now I don't want you conniving money. Money, neighbor. Oh, money, neighbor, money, neighbor, money, money, neighbor, money, money. Now I don't want you conniving money. Money, neighbor, money, money, neighbor, money, money. You can keep your conniving money. When you been a corrupt you have been tell me money. Now because your money done, you come with conniving money.
All right. Morning, neighbor. Morning. You know how Kadaki Amsterdam does his thing. He's usually on time. Well, I was made to understand that he starts at 7:10 or 7:15 with his live program after repeating the previous day's broadcast. So good morning. This is Kadaki's Amsterdam's platform, along with Dr. David Hines. Kadaki Amsterdam is currently in the lockups. He is being held as a political prisoner. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Kadaki Amsterdam is being held as a political prisoner, and just let me say to you guys that I'm trying to get some stuff from Kadaki's platform here, so that we can have a photograph of Brother Amsterdam. And this is my first time actually being in control of his platform, so he has his own thing set up at this end. So please do forgive me. But Dr. Hines is going to be with us this morning. He is going to join in about 5 minutes or so, to have you know that there will be no phone calls. And not because I don't want phone calls, but you know how I operate. But this is Kadaki's platform. He uses his phone. He doesn't have that phone set up here. And so this morning will be no phone calls. And let me just say to all the regular listeners, who are tuned in every morning to Kadaki's Amsterdam's program. And let me say morning to all of you. If I leave your names out, don't get upset. If I call your name first, the second person do not get upset. And so the first name I will call this morning is Flash Gordon. Good morning to Flash Gordon. Good morning to Margaret Andrews, Commissioner Cole, and all of you guys. Good morning to all of you. The people out in Linden, you guys see what's happening in Linden. Perusing newspapers this morning, it is a sad situation in Linden. The entire part of Mackenzie and other places, they are completely flooded. I was looking at some photographs of people's homes. The bottom part of the houses just flood. The furniture, every single thing is gone, wiped out. The sad thing is, though, and we shouldn't be surprised, is under the circumstances, not an official of the PPP regime is in Linden. Not a single official of the PPP regime is in Linden. The corrupt, the racist PPP regime, not a single one of them is in Linden. You guys are not surprised about that, right? But when they were preparing for their propaganda, all of them rushed down there. Every single one of them rushed down there so that they can appear that they're doing up the place, they're digging drains. They destroyed the people's community. And they don't care. All they were concerned about is pretend as though they were cleaning up so that they can raise the flag. That's all they were doing. They don't care about anything else, nothing else. They don't give a rat's you know what about anything else. Anyways, for those of you who are now joining us, my name is Mark Benshaw. I'll be joined by Dr. David Hines shortly. And we are sitting in for Brother Kadaki Amsterdam, who is currently in the lockups as a political prisoner. Let's not be fooled. The charge is politically motivated, and that is why when you take a look at how they treat certain people in the community and the certain people, they have the most brutal form of punishment, and those persons are persons of African descent. It doesn't mean that other groups are not being punished for the political views and so forth. It is true. We're not going to run away from that. But when we specifically look at how persons of African descent are being treated, but let's give an example of a man who is accused of a brutal rape scene, accused that is of a brutal rape scene, is allowed to swing into the police station with his lawyer, a fancy car, police escort, not arrest, no shackles, no nothing, but someone who is alleged to have probably not done anything, because these days you don't have to do anything to be locked up. Nothing at all. You don't have to do anything to be locked up. Let me just say to you guys, and while I sit in for Kadaki Amsterdam, again, who is currently in the police lockups as a political prisoner, I'm not going to be too tolerant with trench grapples. I know it's Kadaki's platform. He deals with them differently, but I'll also deal with them differently while Brother Amsterdam is not here. So they're not going to be allowed. The trench grapples are not going to be allowed with any sort of derogatory comment. They will be sent in the trenches right away, and I am not going to be distracted by them. So for the trench grapples, if you're listening and you want to come on and you want to talk silly stuff, it's not going to happen this morning. You're going straight in the trenches. Simple as that. You are going to go straight in the trenches. I think we will have to ensure that we now that I have access to the entire platform, I have to send the access to Dr. David Hines. And so one of our folks on the ground is calling to say Dr. Hines needs access. So I will try to, I'll be back in just maybe about, no, I'm not going to be back in 30 seconds or so. I'll try to, as quickly as possible, get the access to Dr. David Hines. And again, let me repeat, there will be no distraction on this show. There will be no trench grapples, none whatsoever. But I'll be reading some of your comments as well so that we can get the program going on behalf of Brother Kadaki Amsterdam, who is currently sitting in one of those filthy, filthy lockups, filthy, filthy police station lockups as a political prisoner. We'll be right back. I'm trying to get the morning vibe, the morning beat for you guys. It's Kadaki's platform, and I want to be able to conform to some of his rules. Otherwise, it's over on my platform. It's hey, hey, right? But good morning to all of you, every single one. Rhonda Lane, if she's in class, tell her I say good morning. We'll be right back with more of Buxtonian morning. Buxtonian morning. This is the Buxtonian morning. Uh, Kadaki Amsterdam, if he's listening, because the police at the station, they might turn the volume up. Good morning to you, Kadaki. You have scores of people who are with you. You have scores of people who have prayed for you. You have scores of people who are standing in solidarity with you, uh, Kadaki. Scores of folks. We'll be right back so we can get Dr. David Hines on with us. I don't want to shut them out from their own platform, even though I'm tempted to do that. We'll be right back.
Never Joe, never Joe, never Joe. Oh, money, never money, never money, money, never money, money. Now know what you conniving money. Money, never money, money, never money, money. You can keep your conniving money. When you've been a corrupt in a biz, there'll be money. Now because your money done, you come with conniving money. When you had your pocket full, in a biz, there'll be money. Now because your money done, you hustle to tell me money. Yes, money, never money, never money, money, never money, money. Now do what you conniving money. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. All the money that me walk. A 2 pound note and a kill that piece. A 2 pound note and a kill that piece. A 2 pound note and a kill that piece. This is all the money that me walk. I said money, neighbor, money, neighbor, money, money, neighbor, money, money. Now I don't want you conniving money. Oh, Joseph, for me. Oh, Joseph, for me. Oh, Joseph, for me. Get a piece, one bunch green plantain, one string quackwari, one Jill black pepper. All you can buy with a Gilda piece. Yes, money, never. Money. Never Joe, never Joe, never Joe. Oh, money, never money, never money, money, never money, money. Now I know what you're conniving money. Money, never money, money, never money, money. You can keep your conniving money. When you've been a corrupt in a biz, there'll be money. Now because your money done, you come with conniving money. When you had your pocket full, in a biz, there'll be money. Now because your money done, you hustle to tell me money. Yes, money, never money, never money, money, never money, money. Now I don't want you conniving money. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. That's all the money that me walk. A 2 pound note and a kill that piece. A 2 pound note and a kill that piece. A 2 pound note and a kill that piece. This is all the money that me walk. I said money, never money, never money, money, never money, money. Now I don't want you conniving money. Oh, Joseph, for me. Oh, Joseph, for me. Oh, Joseph, for me. Get a piece, one bunch green plantain, one string quackwari, one Jill black pepper. All you can buy with a Gilda piece.
All right, welcome back. It's the somebody said the Guyana Buxtonian time. the Guyana Morning Time. Uh, Let me just get a quick idea as to where you guys are as I'm looking through some of your comments and waiting to be joined by Dr. David Hines. Dr. Hines, we have a lot to talk about this morning. Just give us an idea. I know where some of you guys are. I know where some of you guys are. And thank you so much for also sharing the link. And it feels good to be in Buxton this morning, Buxtonian morning time, Guyana morning time. Let me just say good morning to all of you and hope you've had a great, great night, well rested as we prepare for Dr. David Hines. Ingrid is in Harlem. Francine Cruz is in Long Island. And good morning to all the folks at the Long Island Nursing Home. Francine Cruz celebrated her 82nd birth anniversary a couple of days ago. 82nd birth anniversary. You guys can wish Francine Cruz an 82nd birth anniversary. All the folks at Long Island Nursing Home. Let me say also, Apostle Nigel London celebrates his birth anniversary today. A happy birthday to Apostle Nigel London. Even though the situation in Linden, I repeat, even though the situation in Linden is not the best at all. And so we just tried to get in touch with the mayor of Linden, that is Sharma Solomon, to get a comment as to what's happening in Linden right now. Yes, we've got to pray for our brother, Kadaki Amsterdam. We've got to pray for him. Kadaki Amsterdam, he currently is in the lockups, but we also have to pray for the people in Linden, right now. And those of you who are celebrating your birthday as well, I wish you guys a happy birthday. We have with us this morning the birthday man, Apostle London, Nigel London. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning to you, sir, and to your listeners and viewers. How are you?
Yeah, well, this morning, along with David Hines, Dr. Hines, who's not here as yet, we are sitting in for Brother Kadaki Amsterdam, and I'm now getting warmed up, so to speak, and somebody whispered to me that it's your birthday, Apostle London. Happy birthday.
Oh, boy. Thank you.
Yeah, the oh boy, is it true? Or because you know Guyanese already. Is it your birthday?
Well, so they told me.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, well, happy 70-something birthday. I think you're approaching 70, 72.
I'm most grateful. 50 days.
Apart from that, sir, what's the situation in Linden now as it pertains to the flood?
Well, I'm headed out, check it out shortly, so I will certainly bring you up to speed as to what's happening. The fortunate thing for us is we don't have rain this morning, so I know that would have brought some relief to the residents in the community, so those affected areas. However, further up at the source of most of these creeks and rivers, that's where we have rain constantly. So I don't know what's happening up in those areas, but once it begins to rain up there, then the water will eventually begin to rise again. So I will do a field visit today to see how things are, and certainly broadcast the same to the wider community.
Yeah, we'll be looking forward for that. I'm sure that even after this program here, that you'll probably do your live as well. But Apostle, thank you, because I know I just called you at the last minute as usual, but thank you so much. And if indeed they told you that today's your birth anniversary, we wish you all the best for today. Continue the great works that you're doing out there in Linden and outside of Linden as well. Thank you so much, sir, for your time.
Thank you for your thoughtfulness as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, that's Apostle Nigel London. It's his birth anniversary. And for those who are celebrating their birth anniversaries, we wish you guys all the best. Let me try to get Dr. David Hines on as we're attempting to do that. We are attempting to have Dr. David Hines on, and that should be shortly. I'm getting a little bit sorry. Yep. So we were attempting to get in touch with the mayor of Linden, Sharma Solomon, to find out what's happening in Linden. We need to find out what is happening in Linden with the floods. It's a horrible situation there in Linden. Nobody in this regime cares. Not a single one of them. Not a single one of them are concerned about what is happening, or a single one of them is concerned about what's happening in Linden. And this doesn't shock you guys, right? This shouldn't surprise you guys that the PPP regime have turned a blind eye on the people of Linden, just as they have turned a blind eye, just as they have turned a blind eye. I notice a trench grapple is on early in the morning or early in the morning. Y'all know I'm not going to tolerate the trench grapples. So whoever, somebody I usually hear, Kadaki mentions his name, some Vishal or whatever. Well, Vishal is in the trench this morning. When Kadaki returns, which is pretty soon, let Kadaki know that Vishal is in the trench. Vishal Prasad is in the trench. No patience for trenches this morning. Absolutely none. So please let Brother Kadaki Amsterdam know that Vishal is in the trench. Commissioner Cole, good morning to you. Good morning, Precious Mineral, and all of you beautiful people. Littell, good morning to you. Deborah Clark, good morning. I know you guys are smiling how I'm dealing with trenches. Certainly no place for trenches this morning. I don't have the patience like Kadaki Amsterdam to tolerate them, because they are here as a distraction. And we are not about to be distracted. Let's get straight to my co-host this morning, Dr. David Hines. Dr. Hines, let me just apologize. I know we had some hiccups in getting you connected, but you are with us this morning. It's still not a good morning for many people, especially those hundreds of people, thousands of people out in Linden facing the flood. And also the news of Brother Kadaki Amsterdam is currently being held in the lockups as a political prisoner with trumped or fake allegations leveled against him as a result of his views, political views, his platform. The PPP regime is running scared with these sort of platforms. Let me welcome you as my co-host this morning, sitting in for Brother Kadaki Amsterdam. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Mark. Good morning, and good morning to all our viewers and listeners, wherever they're joining us from. You're quite right about the Linden story, and some would say karma, some would say coincidence, some would say irony. But after all the noise that was made over the weekend in Linden and was showcasing Linden and about development at Linden, the rain comes and Linden is flooded. It shows total neglect on the part of the government in communities like Linden. Now, rainfall at this time of the year is normal in Guyana, the May-June rains. We've been having unseasonable rains, but flooding continues to be a problem in our country, understandably so. But this government has now the resources to do something about infrastructure. And so therefore, it's a minor crime, some will say a major crime, that a place like Linden can be underwater as we speak. One can only indict the government for that. I don't very likely indict governments for infrastructure problems. Things like flooding are partly nature, are partly circumstance. But this government has the resources to do something about some of these natural disasters that we face in places like Guyana. And after bringing overseas visitors to show them how wonderful things are in Guyana, know this. I think we can only put it at the feet of the government, not the flooding. The flooding is an act of God, as they say, or an act of nature, however you want to put it. And so it's not the government that's caused the flooding, but the government could do something to anticipate the floods, the government could do something to upgrade the infrastructure so that flooding would be at a minimum. And in that regard, one has to indict the government. Now, it is the government that went there at Linden this weekend and said, you know, what Linden is and what Linden is going to be, and so on and so forth. So they have to take responsibility for this.
Absolutely, and I agree with you 100% because I'm a Lindener originally, and I have never heard of Linden being flooded the way it's flooded right now. And especially what is suspicious is that the corrupt PPP regime went into Linden days before this so-called flag raising ceremony to make it appear that they're doing something and cleaning up the community. And they've destroyed the people's community. They've made the flooding even worse. They've made the situation worse. And it's even more unfortunate, and maybe it's a good thing that they are staying away, that not even an official, Air Finale is not out there in Linden, Jack Blair is not out there in Linden, Edgel is not out there in Linden, none of these usual talkers, and even the one who is supposed to be from Linden, Mark Phillips, who sits there as the prime minister, even he has not taken time out to visit the people of Linden. You're not surprised, Dr. Hines, are you, by that?
No, I'm certainly not surprised by that, because I don't think that these people care in a human way about development in all of the regions of this country. They are more concerned about scoring political points than rather than dealing with the real problems. And I think at a real human level, they are prepared to allow things like this to happen in certain communities. And then they are going to go and say that, look, the APNU AFC neglected Linden, and so that is why the flood is there, and we are now going to correct it. So they're using Linden as a political pawn, as they're going to use the opposition strongholds as a political football, political pawn, political theatrics. And so they're not really concerned about the human development of people. And that's my problem with the PPP. You know, I've been around politics long, and I think that there are people always are going to play politics. That's how politicians across the board operate. But when it has to do with people's humanity, when it has to do with people's livelihood, I don't play with that. I do not play with that. I think those things should be above politics. But the PPP, I don't think they mind Linden being flooded. I don't think they mind. A part of it is punishment to Lindeners who may have snubbed them with the flag raising. Second is, as I said, to indict the former government and to, as you notice, part of the drumbeat coming out from the PPP in recent months has been that the PNC has pauperized Black people. All right? We see it from all the mouthpieces. We hear it from the president, the vice president. Well, not the president, but you've heard it from the vice president. And so their thing is to allow things like this to happen to African Guyanese in African Guyanese community, indict the government, and then say we are going to come in as saviors and we are going to stop the flooding in Linden tomorrow. So it's a high and cynical political game that is being played with the life and livelihoods of people. Now, everybody knows that I am very, very, very I'm very serious when it comes to the life, the livelihoods, the humanity of all Guyanese, but especially the Guyanese of African descent, only because historically African Guyanese have been put in danger, whether it is through enslavement, where they work without any pay, where they were fed bad diets. And so therefore, coming out of enslavement and colonialism, African Guyanese have some particular ailments their physical infrastructure in their communities, their health because of the diet that they were fed during slavery. The consequences of that are being seen in the community today. And because I think subsequent governments, except for little moments, the early Burnham years, nothing has been done by way of development to arrest the scars of bondage that is in the African Guyanese community. I really feel very, very, very strong about that. And last night, for example, you heard me pressing the opposition leader that you cannot have the same narrative for each group. Amerindians have particular problems because of where they live. They live in the hinterland, and there are challenges that they have in the hinterland that we on the coastland don't have. And so, therefore, you cannot lump the Amerindian issue and Amerindian suffering with the rest of Guyanese. It's really a disservice to them. You have to deal with their particular problems there. They have problems because, like I said, because of where they live and because of the neglect there in the interior. Indo-Guyanese, because of where they live and because of the economic activity that they're engaged in. They are farmers, they are cane harvesters. They have particular challenges that African Guyanese don't have. African Guyanese are by and large public servants. They live in villages, they're teachers, they're nurses, they're soldiers, they're police. And so obviously their condition and their problems are going to be different. When you go to the African Guyanese community, the question of wages becomes very important in a way that it is not so with a rice farmer. You know, a rice farmer is not about wages, it's about the price of rice. A teacher is about wages. And so I am so impatient with politicians who say, all of we are suffering. No, I think that's intellectual laziness, because we can take time to do what I just did and to say that each community has its own problem. The Portuguese community don't have problems. They're not teachers, they're not nurses, they're not soldiers. Portuguese are business people, and they're thinking about trade, they're thinking about the marketplace. And so when you lump and say all Guyanese are suffering, I think it's dishonest, and I think it doesn't put the government on the spot to deal with the problems that each community faces. Linden is a rivering community. It's a post-bauxite community. They don't do the level of bauxite there that they used to. Linden is not a place where you plant tomato and shallot and all those things on a large scale. They have particular challenges. And I think it's intellectual laziness on the part of our politicians when they say, well, all Guyanese suffering of alcohol. No, it's not so. We are suffering differently because of where we are physically located, where we are located in the political economy, and our own historical challenges that we bring to bear. And I really think as this flooding is taking place in Linden, we on the coastland, we are not being flooded. And there are times when we are flooded on the coastland and the people in Linden are not flooded. And so I am pleading with our opposition politicians, stop being intellectually lazy and stop looking for votes and deal with the human challenges our people face where they live and where they work.
You know, lots of challenges indeed. If you're now joining us for this morning, I am Mark Benchop, and along with Dr. David Hines, we are co-hosting this program, which is called Buxtonian Morning Time, for Brother Kadaki Amsterdam, who sits in a filthy prison, a filthy cell at the lockups, the police station lockups, and trumped up and frivolous allegations being leveled against Brother Amsterdam. And so I've been reading your comments, and a lot of folks are saying, hey, free Kadaki, who is being held as a political prisoner. And the reason why, some may say, well, he has just been picked up for questioning. He's being held against his will for a political reason. And the orders are coming directly from the corrupt politicians to the police force to hold him, to keep him, to punish him. And because of that, because we know all of that is political, he is a political prisoner. Dr. Heinz, thank you for explaining your take on all Guyanese are suffering because our political leaders have to be politically correct. They're out to catch votes. And it's to say that all of us are suffering, but people have different forms of suffering. The rice farmers out in the quarantine are suffering. They have been complaining, lots
Yes.
and lots of them. And I know a lot of our African brothers and sisters who are farmers as well, who are rice farmers, they're
Yes.
cane cutters as well. And they themselves are suffering just like our Indian brothers and sisters. But let us get back, and this is not to disagree with what you have said. I'm in agreement with what you have said, but I just am looking at all of the comments. It's as though people don't want to hear about anything else other than free Kadaki Amsterdam, free Kadaki. I know you have visited, you were there at the station yesterday. You were with Brother Kadaki, albeit they didn't allow you to go in. I spoke with his lawyers last night.
They didn't allow me to go in. I was there with the lawyer, myself
Yeah.
and Dion Abrams for the WP. They allowed us to go in. We
And,
were
and
there with things. So I was present
you
in
were
all the
there. Yeah.
conversations. Yes.
So good morning to Dion. Haven't seen the brother in a while. But let me thank you, Dr. Hines and Dion Abrams, and even the lawyers, Nigel Hughes and Miss Stevens and Miss Jeffers, for their job. Miss Jeffers and Miss Stevens visited him last evening. They said that he's in good health, good condition, good spirit, so to speak, and he knows that this is a politically instigated move against him, and by virtue of that, he is a political prisoner. Describe Kadaki as you guys were with him yesterday morning, please, Dr. Hines.
Yeah, Kadaki was well. First, was in good spirits, and the fighting Kadaki, as he always is, he doesn't allow people to take their eyes and pass him. He doesn't allow people to get away with nonsense. So he was there, dealing with the challenges like a champion, like a soldier. Now, Mark, I think we are entering a new period of political engagement. There is no doubt that these platforms, these programs, are making a tremendous contribution to the education of our people, to the mobilization of our people, and providing platforms for our people to express themselves. The government, as we know, has been eternally concerned about these programs, partly because with all their resources, they have not been able to match what we do. Partly because what we do is not something you can necessarily buy with money. What we do is a culture. As you know, I always say that you are a pioneer of this thing, because long before social media in this way, you have been looking for innovative means of political communication. And so therefore this thing has become a culture. You don't come and say, I am the PPP, I am the government, and I am going to do a program to match Mark Benshaw program or Kadaki program. Not so it works. It's a cultural thing. And with all due respect to our East Indian sisters and brothers, their political culture and the forms of political communication are not the same as Amerindians or Africans. We communicate differently. And so this social media kind of thing, right, fits into the African Guyanese form of political communication. They tend to be very expressive. They tend to be very active in their communication. Brother Norton last night referred to Indian Guyanese as somewhat more passive in their political action. They have very effective political action, but they are not going to go on the streets in their tens of thousands and demonstrate. No, that African people are generally people who do that. Amerindians don't do it that way. All right. And so this social media thing really has taken root in the African Guyanese community. And so when Jack Dio is telling people go out and challenge them on social media, he's been a jackass. Right, and I say that with all due respect. He's been intellectually a jackass. Because
no, not even intellectually. He's just playing out what it is.
Yes, because it doesn't work like that. You can't force people to do what culturally they have not been socialized to do. And so I give all of that explanation to say that this form of communication that we have here is unique and particular. And so therefore, they have not succeeded in getting people to emulate it. They're now trying to break it. And they're now putting their people on these platforms to make derogatory comments, some of them probably to call and to make derogatory comments. They then take these comments and they hold you, they hold me, they hold Kadaki responsible for them. Now, I am looking here right now and I am seeing almost 1,400 people who are live. There are others who are on this program that we can see. No. Are you going to be able to sit there, or me, and monitor? We are moderating a program. We are a guest on a program. Are we going to be able to sit here and monitor what 1,400 people say? No, we can't do that. And so therefore, for someone to make a comment, probably sent there by agents of the government, make a comment and then say, Mark and David, you all are responsible for that comment. I think it's a violation of our human rights, because we have a human right to communicate. Now, if somebody says something in my view, I am going to say, well, no, that's not wrong. That's not right. We sit here. People say the most terrible things. People threaten to kill us. People threaten to do all kinds of things. They come on this program, and sometimes our viewers who have to be quarreling with them. But they said, and I have not seen the government, the police, charge anybody for saying David Hines is a so-and-so.
Dr. Hines
is a so-and-so, yes.
Dr. Hines, you know what? They just don't care, because this whole thing is a one-sided thing.
Yes.
One-sided affair. But at some point in time, it has got to stop. This one-sidedness. I noticed that people are saying that boots on the ground. Wherever Kadaki Amsterdam is, they should have had at least 100, 200 Buxtonians out calling for his release right now. People should not be afraid of protests. People should not be afraid of standing up for what is right. And I'm saying that wherever Kadaki Amsterdam is being locked up right now, 100, 200 persons should have been out there calling for his release. You said earlier that our Indian brothers and sisters, in terms of protests and so forth, and the PPP supporters. Let me take you to a clip, Dr. Hines. Let me take you to a clip and show you how the PPP supporters do their thing.
The violent actions of the People's Progressive Party supporters at Bath Settlement has led to the injury of 4 school children and police officers. Here is that report.
Bath Settlement on the west coast of Berbice has seen violent protesting by supporters of the PPP following Thursday's declaration of regional elections for District 4. A school bus transporting children that attended school in Belladrum was attacked, with a number of children injured. Friday's unrest saw blocking and burning of roads, destruction to public property, and the assault on police officers, most notably with bottles and other projectiles. The violent protesters have also blocked traffic in a number of areas, preventing citizens from going about their daily activities. Luzignan on the east coast of Demerara saw a larger number of PPP supporters protesting, causing unrest beginning Friday morning. It is only after a prolonged period did one member of the opposition address the violent protests, subtly asking protesters to keep the peace. At 4 p.m., well beyond the period of violent protests, the leader of the opposition issued a message to the supporters. On Thursday, leaders of the people...
All right, Dr. Hines, that's just to show you how PPP supporters do their thing. Far worse than what they accuse the opposition or PNC supporters of doing. Far worse. We saw that. And this is just one example of so many. I just wanted to give that example and let you see how they protest. But
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
And Mark, that when we talk about street protests, that's not what we're talking about.
No,
When I talk about street protest, you talk about, we are not talking about that. That's street violence. That's not street protest. That is street violence. And that is why I think my theory still holds that when we talk about street protests, we're talking about picketing exercises you mentioned. We talk about marches. We are talking about the kind of demonstration that we saw in the civil rights movement in the United States of America, the Black Power movement here in the Caribbean. That is what we're talking about. What you showed there just now, that is naked violence. And I am opposed to that kind of violence.
As we all are.
As we all are. And I'm not saying that that does not happen in the African Guyanese community. It does. Sometimes our demonstrations deteriorate into that. But I am putting my neck on the block to say that if you examine when our demonstrations have deteriorated to that point, it is when the police provoke demonstrators, and then the people respond to the police. Here, that crowd was not being provoked by the police. That crowd was provoking the police and attacking the police. And I am making these comparative analysis, not to say one group is better and the other group is worse and all of that. To say that the circumstances are different. The circumstances that there we had a crowd or crowds attacking policemen and women, attacking children, attacking policemen and women and children in
nurses, workers, ordinary citizens.
Yes. And so that is the kind of naked political violence that I am you are vehemently opposed. When we talk about boots on the ground, when we talk about public demonstrations, that's not my idea of public demonstrations.
And so I'm glad that you've brought that to remind us again that when we talk about public demonstrations, we talk about it being done orderly. Nothing is wrong with 200 persons right now in front of the police station where Kadaki, Amsterdam, is being held as a political prisoner. You've got to go out. You've got to protest. There's nothing wrong with that at all. We'll get back to that, Dr. Hines, but let us welcome all of the listeners, those who have just joined us. This is a Buxtonian morning show. Kadaki, Amsterdam, we are sitting in as his co-host. Dr. Hines and I, we've decided that we are going to carry this for Brother Kadaki. And we're calling on those in authority. We're calling on those corrupt officials, those racist officials, to release Kadaki, Amsterdam with immediate effect. And we're also, at least I am saying to concerned citizens, that they have a right to protest. They have a right to stand in front of the police station with placards or with their drums calling on the release of Brother Amsterdam. He has got to be released. And if these kunumunus in office are watching, they've just got to do the right thing and release Amsterdam with immediate effect. We will find out which police station he is at. And for those of you who wish to go down and protest peacefully with a placard or whatever, calling for his release. And that's the only time you see some action sometimes. That is why protest is important. We cannot rule protest out in any struggle. Sometimes it's the first option. Let's go while we prepare to have Dr. David Hines back again with us, who stepped out. Linden, we were trying to get in touch with the mayor of Linden to have an update as to what's happening. And as you all know by now, the corrupt PPP regime, they've turned a blind eye on the people of Linden. Who is going to compensate those people in Linden? They have lost almost everything. Their livestock, they've lost their goods that they have to go to either Mackenzie Market or Wisma Market. Everything just damaged. Who is going to? Who is going to? Who is going to support those people? Who is going to compensate those people? Or are they going to have their kunumunus, their few kunumunus dressed up with fake army uniforms and playing fake dominoes? Are they going to give those people the money to say they're going to give somebody $10,000? Oh, you didn't get anything damaged, and treat those people worse than slaves? Is that what the PPP regime is planning on doing? It is just not going to work. And this is an opportunity for the people of Linden, all the people. We know that they understand the reality of the PPP regime, that the PPP doesn't care, but this is a big eye opener for the people of Linden. They have been disrespected, they have been brutalized, they have been killed under the PPP regime. We remember those three martyrs who were slaughtered by members as it was reported out of a commission of inquiry that they were slaughtered by members of the Guyana police force. We saw what they did with the one seat out of Linden, that the PPP stole that one seat. All these sort of things. A school cost over 300 going on $400 million cannot be completed, but yet some Lindeners cannot see the iPass. Forget about the couple kunumunus that the PPP grab and say they do not control Linden. They're just flatfoot hustlers. That is what they are. I believe Dr. David Hines is probably getting an update on Kadaki Amsterdam or some other bit of information. So he left us in the studio for a couple of minutes. He will be back. I'm seeing him on the backstage there. Let's hope that there is some sort of news and sort of good news. I'm not sure, but we will have to continue to call for the release of Kadaki Amsterdam. Dr. Hines, anything good? I saw you left to take a
Yes, yes, I was getting a report there from party member Dion Abrams.
Go ahead, sir. Anything to share?
Yes, it's a matter of getting food to Kadaki. The police told us yesterday that food can only be taken by family. And Dion was name was given as the family member who would be taking food. Kadaki's son went this morning, not in the company of Dion, and they gave him a hard time to get the food. Eventually, they got the food, but he's not being allowed to see his father. Understandably so, the police is not going to do that, and they're taking the food from him to give to Kadaki, and apparently Kadaki is resisting taking any food from the police. Mark, you have been in that lockup in recent times. Tell us what's the protocol there, because there seem to be a standoff right now as to how the food will get. Kadaki, of course, is in the cell, so he doesn't know whether it is his son who brought the food. He doesn't have communication with anybody, and so therefore he is reticent about taking food. We're trying to get the lawyers to go down there and to try to work out some modus operandi, because they were there last night. The lawyers were there last night, and the lawyers can see him. They can have access to him. But his son and other family members are not allowed to see, and he's not sure where the food is coming from.
You know, under the circumstances, thank you. I recall many of those times that you would want to know who is bringing the food, because you are considered, right now, Kadaki is considered a high-profile prisoner, so to speak, high profile. And so he has to be careful, because you don't know the kunumunus in the PPP. Somebody may want to harm him, because we already know the state is after him. The state is victimizing him. The state is persecuting him. And the fact that they forced him to spend the night in the lockups, they arrested him. We saw the amount of policemen, armed policemen, that went to arrest Mr. Kadaki Amsterdam, compared to an alleged rapist, where that alleged rapist was allowed to drive in with a fancy car into the police station, spent about 1 or 2 hours the most, sent home, didn't keep him overnight or nothing. And these are the things that when we look and we say that it is obvious that the corrupt, racist PPP regime has one set of treatment for persons of African descent, and folks who are connected to the PPP or folks who are non-African descent have a different sort of treatment. And this is what they oftentimes do to persons of African descent. They brutalize them. If they're not slaughtered, they are locked up, they are persecuted, they are jailed. This is what the PPP does mainly to persons of African descent. We saw what they have done to Roxanne Myers, Keith Lowenfield, Mr. Mingo, and others with the trumped-up charges about some sort of fake elections. They attempted to rig elect or whatever. That is all fake. It is all going after those individuals to cover up their wrongdoings. And so the PPP has locked up. They are persecuting Kadaki Amsterdam as a result of Kadaki exposing them. And so that is their only way of reacting, is to come up with some trumped up stuff to say, oh, somebody called in on your program and said X, Y, and Z. Oh, somebody said that. It is because they are running scared. Now, back to your question. The fact that Kadaki Amsterdam is a high profile prisoner, he would want to be cautious. He would want to know who is taking his porridge. He would want to know who's taking his little bread with little fried eggs or whatever. He wouldn't want to trust anybody to just take it in, the police to take it in. And what the police usually do is they take it into you and say, hey, breakfast for you, buy, or somebody bring food for you. You now become concerned because you don't know who that somebody is. That somebody could be Jack Day dress up in, or someone named Jack Day dress up in a dress, or someone named Lick Lip dress up in a skirt and go there and say that they are bringing food for Kadaki Amsterdam. And then expect Kadaki Amsterdam to accept it and eat it. It doesn't work like that. And so under the circumstances, Kadaki Amsterdam has every right to say, I want to know, which is what I used to do. I used to say, I want to know who brought this food for me. I want to know who brought this lunch for me. Now, you could take a little chance with a little box of shorts and a little vest or whatever, or towel and soap and thing. You could take chances with that to say, oh, X, Y, or Z dropped this off for you. You could take chances with clothing or towels, but you cannot take chances with your food. Kadaki Amsterdam is correct. He wants to know who brought his food for him. And if a friend is bringing his food for him, in case where his son can't make it, or some other relative cannot make it, if a friend like Dion Abrams, who is a friend and a colleague of Kadaki Amsterdam, is taking his food, the police cannot say only relatives can take the food. They cannot, they do not have that right. What has to happen is once the food is there, and Kadaki Amsterdam is informed that this person by the name of Dion Abrams or David Hines is there to bring your breakfast, then Kadaki Amsterdam can say, can I see the individual? Can I wave to the individual? Because the lockup is right there next to the desk. It is not like it is 2 miles away. It is right there. And they can show Kadaki who brought his meal for him, so that he can wave and he can feel comfortable that the food is being taken into the lockups to him right after it was handed to them. Now, one of the other things that they do, they will open up the food. They will search the food to ensure that there's nothing else in there other than the food. Now, if they're going to do that, that has to be done in front of the person who brought the food.
Yes.
And if possible, in the eyesight of Kadaki, that he can see that his food is being searched. And once it is done, they close the box or whatever and hand his meal to him. That is how he will be comfortable eating his meal, knowing that nothing is wrong with it. Under the circumstances, what is going to happen, they are going to want to deprive him of that right. And when they deprive him of that right, Kadaki Amsterdam has every right not to eat that food. So don't be surprised if we hear next from his lawyer, that Kadaki Amsterdam is on a hunger strike. And that is why prisoners, high-profile prisoners, go on hunger strike to say, I am not going to eat because I'm not comfortable with how or what the police said or who brought my food. I don't know who brought my food, and therefore I am uncomfortable eating this meal. I no longer want any food. I'm on a hunger strike until I get to see the person who bring my food, who brought my food, sorry, and I see that my food is being delivered directly to me. So expect Kadaki Amsterdam to go on a hunger strike. That's as best as I can explain it. And that is why oftentimes people will hear that Ben Shap was on a hunger strike. And that is what leads to hunger strikes by high profile political prisoners. Dr. Hines?
Yes, well, it's been a long time since I have had that ordeal, but you and I would know what self-support is when you are on remand. And I was told that when my people would bring the food, they would search the food, but in the presence of the person who brought the food. And when I was on remand, we had a party member, Kathy Will. She's now deceased. She was a very feisty old lady, and she would cook the food and bring it, and she would insist. She knew the rules. She read up, as she used to say, and she would insist that they search that food in front of her, and she would not move until that protocol is taken care of. So I know of that part. But in terms of the police station story, I have not had that ordeal in recent times. So I am not particularly au fait with what is done at the police station. But I know at the prison with self-support. Is that what they used to call it in your time? Back in my time, which was decades before your time, it was called self-support.
It still is called self-support, and usually what happens is the high-profile prisoners have somewhat, as you would know, a slightly different treatment.
Yes.
Because political prisoners are housed separately, because I was housed in what is called a strong cell, which is solitary confinement. The strong cell area. Yes. It's a dungeon. And once you go through about 3 or 4 gates, you go down into a little hole, and they seal that hole off. And so, yeah, thanks for bringing back that memories. But let us go back to Brother Kadaki Amsterdam. But yes, to answer your question, it calls self-support, and it also called Pantap. Some of our people who are listening might know what Pantap is as well. Pantap is when you can get self-support, Pantap. But back to, I see you just lick your lip when you heard Pantap. Prison porridge. The prison porridge used to be the darkest that I've ever seen, with no milk or nothing. I don't know where the milk used to go. I don't want to talk about that. But yeah, Dr. Hines has gone again for another phone call. Persons are asking, where exactly is Kadaki Amsterdam at this time? Neville, Sita, good morning to you. Also known as Civic, is talking about Pantap, poppy food. And so Kadaki Amsterdam has every right to refuse the food until he gets to see the person who brought the food and to see the handling of the food. Now, if he is at Isla Penitence lockup, it is right there. The desk, the officer's desk is right there. They could basically pull, Dr. Hines, your mic, please. They can pull the little screen there, and Kadaki can peek through the hole. Because I became an expert at that. You find somewhere to speak, you find somewhere to peep. And I learned about that peeping skill since I was a little boy on the quarantine. Peep. You find some, I'm not saying anything. You find somewhere to peep. And so you get to see, and you get a better understanding. You know somebody brought your food for you. Say, for example, Neville Seatal or Dennis Booker brought my food. I get to see that is Miss Booker. If Flash Garden brought my food, I get to see it's Flash Garden. If it's Civic, I get to see who that Civic brought my food, and you feel comfortable by that. So watch out for Kadaki going on a hunger strike, because the state wants to punish him. That is what it's about. We have all gone through this. The state is punishing, they're targeting, unjustifiably, they're targeting Kadaki Amsterdam. If something happened months ago, and they never paid attention to it, but because they want to divert attention to a lot of things happening, a lot of bad things happening in the country, this is what they do. How do they sit down at Freedom House or wherever else at some rum shop or some strip club, and they plan their next move. How do we divert attention? Okay, here's what we're going to do. Kadaki or somebody said something months ago, or somebody allegedly said something. This is what we're going to do. We're going to arrest him to divert attention. That is what corrupt regimes do. That is what oppressive regimes do. And that is exactly what they have done to Kadaki Amsterdam. Dr. Hines?
Mark, I'm very glad that you have gone there, because yesterday, when we went to the CID, the lawyers were there, I was there, Dion Abrams was there. And the lawyer asked, what is he arrested for? The two officers, the CID officers, they were reluctant to speak to the lawyer. Nigel, in his quiet but authoritative way, eventually got them to say an accusation was made by somebody about a statement that he made on his live show. When they transferred him to Ramveld, and we got there to Ramveld, and he was booked, the officer then read to him that an accusation was made by Mohammed Kwelanda, and it is based on that accusation by Kwelanda that he's arrested and is being detained. Later last night, people started to call us and to say that there are reports in the media that the police have issued a statement saying that he is being held for attempting or inciting the murder of the president and members of his cabinet. So we had what you call a change of story over time. Now that's very instructive, and it's something that you know very well, probably better than I do. Maybe the first story that Kwelanda is this accusation was made, and of course by the end of the day, and you did mention that to me yesterday, that story now apparently seemed to be one that may get them in trouble. So they go now and they dig up some statement.
I'm coming on the phone now.
Yeah. If you can stick a pin there, please, for a quick minute. We have with us attorney at law Nigel Hughes. Good morning to you, attorney Nigel. Morning.
Good morning, Mark. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Nigel.
Any update on Kadaki Amsterdam since we spoke last night?
Right, Mark. Since we were on your program last night, we have not had any update. What we intend to do is at about 8:45 today, which is after the police have had their early morning meetings. They tend to have briefings between 8 and 8:45. We will contact again Police Officer Hines to find out whether or not he intends to take Mr. Amsterdam to court this morning, or whether he is continuing his detention, or whether he has further questions he wishes to put to him.
You know, you've gone through this probably dozens upon dozens of time. Anything strange you've noticed with this whole situation?
It's pretty standard, save and except that they contend, this is the police, they contend that these allegations were made, the complaint was made about 2 months ago. As some of your listeners are aware, there are ongoing civil proceedings between Kadaki and one of the complainants. So I'm surprised that it would have taken them that long to propose to get in contact with Mr. Amsterdam. If they had a complaint that such a long time ago, Mr. Amsterdam is on the TV every day. So the timing is curious.
The timing is curious indeed. The fact that they have to go months back to say, because they couldn't get one way with whatever, and so they decided to come up with some other frivolous allegations against your client, against Kadaki.
Mark, can I ask Nigel this
question? Go ahead,
David.
Go ahead.
Counselor, when we were there yesterday, they indicated to us that a complaint was made by an individual, Mohammed Kwelanda, and that is the reason for him being held. But late last night, the media have been reporting that he's being held for inciting people to murder the president and members of his cabinet. Have you taken note of that change, and what could have influenced that change in the story by the police? Because clearly when we were there, on your insistence, after some hesitation, they said why he was being arrested and detained. And by late in the night, the police puts out a statement quoted by the media that it is for inciting murdering of the president and members of his cabinet.
David, so you clearly missed Mark Benchup's program last night. On that program, two of our attorneys went to the station. We got a call somewhere around 6:30 p.m. that the police were ready to question Kadaki. Those two attorneys went down. I was unable to go. Kiswana Jefford and Adriana Stephen. And at that interview, the police put those allegations that sound like they're the content of their press release, which is that he played or caused to be played extracts that incited people to want to murder the president, the attorney general, I think the minister of finance, and somebody else, and the vice president. So that was the additional line of questioning. As you know, when we were at the station early in the day, no such information was provided either to Kadaki or his attorneys. So that was the line of questioning last night. Kadaki remained silent, exercised his right to remain silent, and that was the line that they were coming with last evening.
You know, I have a quick question, Nigel, concerning, and if you're now joining us, on the line with us is attorney at law Nigel Hughes, giving us a quick update on the situation with his client, Kadaki Amsterdam. Is it strange that even while this matter is being quote unquote investigated by the police, that the police issued a statement and put out a video there of what they are supposedly investigating? Does that come as a surprise?
Yes, Mark, for several reasons. The police seem to be fighting a propaganda battle as well as conducting an investigation when they really should be concentrating on the latter. And the reason for that is this. If these complaints were made months ago, certainly they had more than ample opportunity to contact Mr. Amsterdam if they feel that these videos were offensive or cause for concern. They could have dealt with all of that in the press. The fact that they have now detained him when they elected for months not to even contact him clearly means that his detention is intended as a punishment, because he cannot interfere with the investigation. They've had this complaint for 2 months. They've done nothing with it. He is not a flight risk. He has been here for the last 2 months, continuing to broadcast after these complaints were made. And one really has to ask the question, why would the police wait that long and for this particular time to arrest Mr. Amsterdam and then keep him in custody when there's no risk of any interference with their investigation? And this could only be intended as a form of an abuse of power to punish him before charging him.
An abuse of power, indeed. Before you go, Mr. Hughes, Dr. Hines, any final thing you have?
No. I think he answered the question that I was about to ask there.
Yeah. So I'm not going to ask you this here, whether they want to pull him through the long haul, so to speak, the 72 hours, and probably file for an extension. We hope not, and we hope that good sense prevails. But are you sensing that that's exactly what they want to do to Kadaki Amsterdam, to punish him?
Yeah, I think if you look at the pattern of conduct in these matters, which have clear political implications, the police keep people for 72 hours as a matter of rote, not as a matter of necessity. And this clearly is intended to send a message to them that, you know, if you're going to speak out against what is happening, that they will imprison you and use the powers vested in them to detain you for as long as possible before either bringing charges or releasing you on bail.
Mr. Nigel Hughes, we'll be in touch with you practically all day. Let's hope good sense prevails and that they release Kadaki Amsterdam with immediate effect. Anything else you wish to add to our listeners before you go, sir?
No, I would. Well, the one thing I would ask Mark and David, is that this piece of legislation is so offensive that a campaign ought to be started to have it recalled and repealed. It really is being so abused. It ought to be taken off the statute books.
All right, thank you. I can't say that I disagree with you with that at all. Full in support of that. Thank you so much, Mr. Hughes. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, and good luck to both of you.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
All right, Nigel Hughes there. Dr. Hines?
Yeah, Mark, I want to pick up where Nigel left off there in terms of the piece of legislation. And, sometimes these things have to be said frankly. That legislation also had the hand of our government, and I always say to citizens, you hold the government of your opposing party accountable, but equally you hold your own government that you vote for accountable. You see, because governments by their very nature are into the business of accumulating power over citizens. And this cyber legislation, like I said, the PPP is utilizing it in the most egregious way, in the most heinous way, in the most dictatorial way. But it got on the books with the support of our government, our elected government. And so it's a hint to us. It's an in to us on this side. This nonsense of whenever our government does something, it's good, and we don't raise our voices against it. A lot of people are vexed with me when I was critical of the coalition government for what I thought what they did wrong during their time. And I consider myself to be part of that government because my party was there, was part of the government. But we are seeing where that legislation was passed under the PNC, the coalition government, and now it's being used against coalition people. I think it's a lesson for us in the opposition camp, opposition supporters, not to, because the leaders of our side do something, say it's good. Because this is a clear example of what happens when you endorse nonsense that has been done by your own government, and then it comes back to haunt you later on. This is not to take the responsibility from the PPP, not because a law is there that is draconian, that you use that law against your opponent, but that is what is being done here. So I'm asking us to look at it at two levels. To look at it that it was a piece of legislation that was countenanced by our own elected government, and now the PPP is taking it, it's abusing it. The PPP is abusing it and using it to abuse its opponents. And I agree with Nigel that we have to begin a campaign to have that legislation repealed, perhaps a constitutional challenge by the lawyers to get some judicial review on it at one level, and at the other level to get our lawmakers to push for the repeal of this legislation. It's the kind of elastic legislation in our books that can be stretched. We call it elastic because they can stretch it to fit any situation. Anything now can be put under the cybercrime law. Anything they want to get at you, can be put under this cybercrime law. We have to get it off the books. Yes.
Anything at all. Sorry that I had to cut you there. We have the leader of the opposition with us, Aubrey Compton Norton. Mr. Norton, good morning to you, sir.
Morning to you and the listening, viewing audience.
Yeah. Concerning the situation out in Linden, flooding all over the place, and the PPP has turned its back on the people of Linden. No official has gone up there, nothing. You're not surprised at that at all, sir?
No, I'm not surprised. And one has to put the flooding squarely at the feet of the People's Progressive Party. The regional authorities, the local government authorities, the mayor and city council, they have all requested for the government to do the dredging of the outfalls and doing the work that was required. The PPP did put some money into their family, friends, and favorites in the area. And as a consequence, what has happened is that no proper job was done, money was spent, and the results are the flooding of Linden. So I will place this squarely at the feet of the PPP government. They have neglected Linden over the years. They have reduced the actual budget for Region 10. And so the consequences they should have known, one of which is flooding. So for us, the People's Progressive Party is culpable, and it's another manifestation of their ill treatment of Region number 10.
Thank you so much. I know it's an impromptu call, but Kadaki Amsterdam is still...
Except that...
Go ahead.
Go ahead, yeah.
Sir, go ahead.
Except that I wanted to express solidarity with Kadaki. I am heading out to town, but I would want us to file habeas corpus and seek to get Kadaki out today. I am of the view now that we have to go to court on the police misuse of this 72 hours. You don't have a case. You cannot be locking up people and just arbitrarily keeping them for 72 hours. I think that needs to end.
Well, so, they would definitely say that it is the law, and a habeas corpus can only be filed after the 72 hours is up. Many years ago, they were arguing. Go ahead, sir.
Look, I believe that it has to be challenged. The 72-hour was intended for if there is a reasonable case and that you need to hold the person for one, for the investigation, or two, if you feel this person is going to compromise the witnesses or something. What you have here is a report by a PPP acolyte, and in a civil matter, and they are using that to detain somebody against their will, and it needs to be challenged.
All right, a lot of things needs to be challenged indeed, and we know we know who we're dealing with, those corrupt individuals in the PPP regime. But I get your point about the habeas corpus. Indeed, it needs to be challenged as to why you're holding this individual. You always say for their investigation.
Mark, can I?
Yes, go ahead, David.
Good morning, Aubrey. I want to go back to the Linden flooding, if we may, because I think it's very important. And Linden, of course, is your hometown, one. Secondly, it's the heartland of PNC/opposition support. And I think this matter of flooding has to be seen not just at the political level, but to seen at the human level. And I want to ask you if you intend to go to Linden to speak with Lindeners and to point out the relationship between the way in which this government is treating them inhumanely, because as you quite rightly said, the flooding is something that could now be avoided and anticipated, and we have the resources, and that they're starving the regional government there of resources for political reasons, but it has human implications, and that sometimes we politicians concentrate on the political implications and not the human implications. Do you intend to go there and to really talk to our people
before the opposition leader answers that question? Let me apologize to the opposition leader for just asking him for 1 minute of his time. And I think David Hines is actually a CFAR man, but spend another minute or so in response to that, please, Mr. Norton.
Well, I believe that human beings are at the base of politics. And I don't want to draw a distinction between the political and the human. Politics is about people, and the government must know that every time they do these negative things, they are affecting people. And so I see it as political, I see it as involving human beings. I see it as, look, one of the key definitions of politics is the authoritative allocation of resources, meaning a political system has the authority to allocate resources. If they allocate it in a fair way, then all the society will benefit. If they allocate it in an unfair and discriminatory way, like this government does with Region 10, 4, 7, and sometimes 8, then it is going to be political. It will affect human beings like it is doing, and it needs to be condemned and to point out that it is the government that has the authority to allocate those resources, and the skewed approach to allocating the resources is what is affecting many societies across the country, but more significantly, the APNU AFC strongholds. And so I see it as political. I see it as involving human beings, and in essence, it is the government's maladministration that is responsible for what is happening here.
Thank you so much. And I'm glad that you didn't publicly respond to that other question Dr. Hines asked. I think the question has been answered by me. Dr. Hines, you are a CFAR man. Be safe wherever you're heading, Mr. Norton. Thank you.
Good, thanks. Take care.
Appreciate it. And Dr. Hines, I think you, apart from a CFAR man, you could read between the lines.
Yeah.
And the people.
Mark,
go ahead. Yeah.
And I heard Aubrey, and he's quite correct with what he said, that the political is human and the human is political. But I think sometimes our people do not respond to their sufferings in a more serious way because they're wary of politics and they feel that politics is a devious thing and they don't want to be part of it. I think if we begin to err more on the side of the human, I think it's a way of getting them to understand the seriousness of the situation. That this thing here has human implications. I mean, Linden, you know what a flood is going to do to that place. Because of the topography of that place, a lot of the houses are one-story houses. And so when you have a flood of this nature, you're really playing with what we call flooding out people. You know, it's not just that you got rain and the yard flood. There's a lot of risk here of human displacement. And what comes with the flooding is not just the water, there's now disease and all kinds of other things. And I think sometimes as politicians, we err more on the side of the political. I agree with Aubrey, there's a relationship between the human and the political, but sometimes you have to disaggregate these things in order for people to understand that this area is not just about PNC versus PPP. It's really about your humanity. It's about your safety.
About your humanity, about your safety. The people, the PPP, they have neglected the people of Linden. They have turned a blind eye. They have turned their backs against the people of Linden, even in a time of this situation with the flooding. Hundreds of homes have been flooded. Who is going to compensate these people? Millions upon millions of dollars lost. And the fact that they have turned a blind eye. I've noticed Desiree Simons, good morning to you, ma'am, is asking a question here. That she's suggesting, mind you, that the mayor of Linden, Sharma Solomon, say something. He has been very busy, as we have noticed. And let me say to you guys that I've been trying to make contact with his worship, the mayor of Linden, so that he can give us an update. And I agree with you, Desiree, that he is on the ground there and that he should give an update. But he has been giving an update, and to his credit, he has been giving an update practically all day yesterday, this morning. I think they started again. They're busy on the ground there. And let me say that we are at the Bench Up Foundation. We're trying to get in some hundreds of cleaning uniforms, those cleaning suits, so to speak, into Linden. We are hoping that it's going to be there on time for that. Dr. David Hines, again, let us welcome all of our listeners. It appears we are not getting off for now, but we still have some more time with you guys. But Kadaki, Amsterdam, I was just told that he wants to know who is taking his meal. He's not going to accept his meal from just the police saying, "Oh, somebody brought your meal." Dr. Hines, he's quite
we are working on that, and to make sure that once this program is finished, I'm going to go down to the station there and try to make an arrangement with the police that for Mr. Amsterdam to in some way see who is taking his meals. Mark, I want to stress again what I just said about the human side. You know, 99% of what I learned in politics, if I were to attribute it to an individual, it would be to EUC Kwayana. And when, as young boys and girls, we were coming up in Buxton, one of the things that we had to know the back dam. We had to know the back dam. And because Kwayana, I couldn't understand it then, why the back dam was so important to politics. And he knew the back dam, you know, in Palmer. Only recently, there was the company trench, which is the main artery in our village there, dried up. And Kadaki, I mentioned it to Kwayana, and immediately told me, he said, "Oh, this is the reason we call Kadaki." And Kadaki said, "Well, exactly, brother, you see what you say there." I'm making the point that as political people, we must not only know politics, we must know our community, we must know the topography, we must know the things that affect people's lives. And I hate this morning to be critical of us, political people. But I think a lot of times we get off mostly on the political propaganda part of things and scoring political points. And who am I to say that we shouldn't score political points? I try to do it every day. But the human element and the cultural element are very, very, very important. And the reason I'm invoking Kwayana, because I think there is a way in which you learn politics that influence your approach to political organization and so forth. And at a time when we are saying our people are not doing this, they're not coming out to protest, they're not this, they're not that, and so on, I always have held a different view. That if people see a personal incentive, a family incentive, a community incentive, a group incentive, and when you bring all those incentives together, people are going to come out. You see, people are not robots. They get up in the morning and you say, "Oh, Kadaki get locked up, you all go and pick it." I don't think it works like that. I think it's a case where you have to socialize your people over time to see the relationship between what happens on the political front and how it affects them. If you wake up in the morning and you go into your kitchen and all you look into that fridge and all you see in the fridge is 2 squingy plantain, that once you relate that to politics, it then makes sense to people. It makes sense to people. And I think as political people, we don't do enough of that, what I call the Kwayana approach, which is the human and the culture. You start with the human, you start with the culture, and you move to the politics rather than start with the politics and then try to move that to the human beings. And so I just want to stress that here, that part of what we're doing is propagandizing and mobilizing. But I think part of what we always must do is to socialize our people to see politics differently.
Thank you so much. Let's go to the phone. Thank you, Dr. Hines. Appreciate that. On the phone we have no stranger to you guys, former senior member of the Guyana Police Force and former chairman of the Police Service Commission, Paul Slow. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mark. Good morning, Dr. Hines. Good morning to all the viewers, all the listeners. Good morning to you all.
You're not surprised. We know, even as a former police senior assistant, that's assistant commissioner of police, commander of A division, B division, and so forth and so on, chairman of the Police Service Commission. You're not surprised because you were treated in a disrespectful manner by even members, junior ranks of the Guyana Police Force. You're not surprised at the manner in which they're treating Kadaki Amsterdam with this frivolous accusation, are you?
Well, nothing surprises me now with how the Guyana Police Force functions. The way they function now, it is unrecognizable to what I know it to be. So I'm not surprised, but I continue to say that I am very disappointed with some of these things because, for example, I don't know, they're creating rules specific for certain persons. This thing about meals, where designated persons have to take meals perhaps at designated time. It's purely rubbish. You may have a time during which prisoners, as we call them, are fed. But then you can't determine who should take the food to the person. And I'm saying this here now that Mr. Amsterdam is correct. You can't, as a person who is there under those circumstances, take food from anyone that you don't know, because things can happen. One could always, or you should always remember Kazarsky. For those of you who don't know, there was a man who was arrested and during the troubled periods, and he began to sing. They say he was began to sing, and he was at the Georgetown Hospital, and he died mysteriously. So therefore, once a person, a high-profile person like Kadaki is in custody, I am saying that he has to be careful from whom he eats or from whom he takes anything to drink. The next issue has to do with this 72 hours rule, which is totally misapplied. And Mark, as I'm preparing now for my program at 11 o'clock, speaking out exposing corruption and incompetence, and I will address those issues in greater detail. Myself and my colleague, Mr. Clinton Conway, we're going to address the police actions in these matters, the 72 hours, which is abuse, the thing about feeding a prisoner, a man who is accused of the cybercrime is handcuffed and taken to the police station. And we're going to address all of that in great detail at 11 o'clock today.
And we will be looking forward for that. In fact, we will carry it right here on 107.1 FM. And you are correct. We need to address these things. It's a highly questionable. Dr. Hines, quickly, because I interrupted Mr. Slow there. Your mic, please.
Mr. Slow, good morning. Long time.
Good morning, Dr. They're not too long.
I know. I'm going to correct that. I'm going to correct that in short order.
On a little humor, side of humor, when two big men who are usually hanging out together have a history of this friendship, stay away from each other for long, it means somebody owes somebody. But I
can take the responsibility. I do the whole thing. Earlier, attorney at law Nigel Hughes was on here, Mr. Slow, and he pointed to this this cybercrime law, and he's suggesting that it's a law that they can fit anything, they can stretch it. To really abuse the human rights of citizens and their right to free speech. And he's suggesting that perhaps the time has come for us to talk about repealing that law. What are your thoughts?
Well, let me say this to the viewers. I will do the research and I'll tell you. The current Attorney General, Anil Nandlal, about 2 years ago, made a statement. I have it somewhere. I'll pull it up to read it to people today. That the current cybercrime law will be repealed and it will be replaced by some modern legislation patterned after some United Nations thing. The Attorney General said so, and yet still they continue to weaponize the cybercrime law. The Attorney General, it is there on record. You know, when I speak on the program and I speak now, I make sure that I'm supported by facts. And again, I repeat, the current Attorney General, Anil Nandlal, or Nandlal, SC, MP, is on record about 2 years or so ago to say that the law will be repealed, the cybercrime law. So I think
you know, Paul,
we need to say anything further on that.
You are correct with that in terms of it. It appeared that he said that in 2022 when he spoke about the fact that the draconian, which is called not the treason. There's another crime underneath treason that should sedition. And that
sedition.
That they never charge anybody with sedition. Well, they charge me with sedition. They charge Ronald Waddle with sedition. They charge Oliver Hinkson with sedition as well. But the point that you're making that Anil Nandlal, who sits there as the Attorney General, did say that the Cybercrime Act, when it was in opposition, they said that government says that this is what they're saying, that the works to have it repealed, and it will be replaced by a modern act formed out of recommendations of the United Nations Convention on countering the use of information and communication of criminal purposes. And that is what he has said. And to this day, not a word on that at all. In terms of free speech, we have had folks have been speaking out against that. In fact, Pandit Obraj Narain was questioned. We've had Sherrod Duncan was questioned. We have Rhonda Lane and a whole host of others who are pro-opposition. They were questioned, they were locked up, they were charged. And in the case of Rhonda Lane, she had to pay a fine of over $500,000. I know that you're preparing for your show, but Dr. Hines, anything else for Mr. Slow?
No, I will hold because I will have to do a citizen arrest on Mr. Slow to get him onto politics.
I may resist. The last set of people who tried to arrest me legally, it was their life for all to see. I don't go down that easily. I know my rights. I know my rights.
Let me say this here. Let me offer a disclaimer, because I do not want Mr. Slow to go and make a report that is cyberbullying him on the show. Paul, thank you so much. Looking forward for your show, sir. Give my regards to Clinton.
Thank you. Let me again invite all and sundry to tune in at 11 o'clock today. Speaking out, exposing corruption, incompetence, myself and colleague, Mr. Clinton Conway, former Assistant Commissioners, both will be able to go into these things in greater detail. So tune in.
You know, Mr. Slow, on a lighter side, you said that you don't go down easily. I saw you at the officers' mess many, many years ago when a particular commissioner of police then grabbed a plate of food from you and you did nothing. You couldn't do anything. You couldn't fight back or anything. You know what I'm talking about.
That was a humanitarian nature. When a man is hungry, he takes a plate from you. Don't take it back.
Thank you so much for your time, sir. Appreciate it. Yeah.
All right, good, man.
Former Assistant Commissioner of Police there, Mr. Paul Slow. He's preparing for his show. Dr. Hines, I know the people they want us to stay on for a little longer, but we also have engagements.
Yes.
The mayor of Linden, we should be hearing from the mayor of Linden pretty soon. Anything else you wish to add as we prepare to at least by 9 o'clock wrap up our show? As we
I just want to say, and good morning to Sister Dawn Kush, who is addressing me by my cultural name, Chief Uhuru. And as they would say in Buxton, Chief Uhuru. But Mark, I think when political developments happen, we have to learn something from them, and we have to use them to chart the way forward. I think the arrest and detention of Kadaki Amsterdam here presents us with an opportunity to take an assessment of the weakness of the PPP, because they're expressing their weakness. Kadaki has a microphone. He sits in his house and he broadcasts and speaks to Guyanese people, and also to hold the government accountable accountable to Guyanese and accountable to the world in which we live in. And that if the government is going so hard at him, it means, therefore, that he is exposing a weakness of the government. But it's also about the government reaching for the kind of unlimited power that it has and the ability to use it to abuse individuals and, by extension, to abuse the integrity of our nation. And so, therefore, Kadaki is going to be all right. He's a trooper, right? Kadaki understands that when we are in struggle, they're going to come at us, and we have to take some blows. But it is not the taking of the blows; it's what we do once this moment is past. And I think that's where our head has to go. I repeat, Kadaki is going to be all right. Kadaki is not crying. He's not begging. He's taking this as part of his political activism. But I'm saying that we have to ensure that this moment, it does not go down as just another moment. Kadaki get locked up, and that's it.
Dr. Hines, it comes with the territory. That is all part of the struggle.
Yes.
Being locked up,
Yes.
and we've gone through it all. And I can just imagine how Brother Kadaki's feeling. And we are doing this here to give him that support. He needs that. And there are times when, and you know how it is to be locked up. There are times when you're locked up, and when we were at Brickdam Police Station lockup, one voice outside in full support means a lot to us inside. That is why I'm saying it is important that we rally our troops, rally our supporters to go in front of the police station and picket the police station. Let them know that enough is enough. There's nothing wrong with that. But let me just say quickly, Dr. Hines, as I interrupted you there again, we have the mayor of Linden, Sharma Solomon, is with us. His worship, the mayor. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mark, and good morning, Dr. Hines. How are you?
Good morning, Sharma.
Can you give us an update, Mr. Mayor, on the situation with the flooding there? We know that the PPP has turned a blind eye, and they are treating the people exactly how we know, without any respect or regards to their situation. What's happening there, please?
Yeah, Mark, and it's good that we have this matter being attended to in terms of the attention being paid. It is indeed a crisis. Before I get to that, however, let me lend my solidarity with Brother Kadaki and to recognize him as this era and this generation political prisoner, because that is what it is. You spoke about the different forms of the struggles. Back then, persons would have been shot. Back then, people would have been in prison. However, we see that we are using technology to go after those who are prepared to stand in defense of the rights of Guyanese. So our thoughts and prayers are with Brother Kadaki, and let him know that we recognize it for what it is, that he is our generation's political prisoner, along with so many others. Reference to the issue in Linden, Mark, it goes right back to that same trait of the conversation of government's behavior towards citizens of this nation. The level of neglect is not only unbearable, it's consequential in terms of when we have a government would have removed from local government all of the instruments to be able to manage the affairs of residents within their constituencies and their communities. So all of the means outlined in 2801, which gives the local authority and the municipalities the power to maintain drains and parapets, we now have these under the management of CDC groups. And I'll tell you further to this, Mark, on two levels. Not only these groups have shown incompetence because of what they represent. So for example, in Linden, 13 of these groups, the chairpersons of them are persons who contested for the last local government elections that are PPP candidates. These groups who should have been doing work earlier in April failed to do so because it would have prepared the town for the Linden Town Week period. And instead, they are now putting $77+ million, which was used to prepare for the flag raising ceremony, into the hands of these groups, who did a very miserable job, as we saw the consequence of less than 24 hours of rainfall. People are suffering. People lost tremendous amount of items. However, we are in contact with the CDC group, with the Civil Defense Commission. We're in contact with other agencies that we've already started to initiate support. And it is because of that attention, government have now made available regionally, and we hope to see national attention to the suffering in terms of making available machinery, getting the Civil Defense Commission activated along with the NDNIA, and to release funds to have some of these clogged drains that have been neglected for some time now to be paid attention to. I saw the statement from the Prime Minister, most incoherent, rambling, and reckless as it is, in terms of first working close with the council, which is really working close with the PPP identified town clerk, but then at the same time trying to blame the council, knowing full well that they have not given the council resources to do anything, and not just this municipality, but every municipality across this country, unless you're aligned to the People's Progressive Party. So the people of Linden, across the different communities of Karakara, where of that 77 million that was spent last weekend to parade around, to look good, as if they care about residents, should have been spent to clear the Haimara Creek, which would have prevented certainly hundreds of homes that were flooded in Karakara and Retrieve, and affecting hundreds of residents yesterday and even today as we speak. Persons such as young Dominique with a pregnant wife, whose entire bottom house that is flat was covered in water.
Yeah.
Entire car covered in water, because that creek should have been a priority. If government was prepared to work in collaboration with the municipality, that would have been pointed out to them to take a few of that amount of money to clear that creek. It was not done. We go to the Katakara Creek, which is incomplete as part of that $77 million clearing. It is incomplete for the works that they started to clean up for the flag raising exercise, resulting in flooding in the constabulary compound and in the industrial area. We go to the Nikadak area, the most hardest hit community. Houses were almost 4 to 3 feet underwater.
Mm-hmm.
And you had, because of the neglect of the cleaning of the area by CDC groups, because those groups were alignment perceived by the government to some coalition forces, those groups were never activated. So 2 years, Nikadak was not cleaned, and the entire Nikadak community suffered severe flooding with water going as 4 feet, covering cars completely. We go to the alleys and the valleys over at Wisma, and because those CDC groups again have not been activated to clean early in April during the dry season, because it would have prepared the town for town week, they've left those cleaning back, and now those alleys and valleys have clogged drains because of siltation of sand and sediment. So it is the government direct neglect of institutions, of agencies that they have direct control over through party appointed officials that have failed to do anything over the past several months in preparation during the dry season for any wet season. And instead of doing the work when they were called upon early in April, they failed to do that because of not wanting to prepare the town properly for the Linden Town Week activities. But instead hold that back last week for flag raising in the rainy season. And now we are seeing significant erosion with some of the works done in the rainy season and a lot of hardship facing people with flooding. So the Prime Minister is on in his rambling and incoherent presentations speaking about the municipality. I'm trying to figure out in what alternate universe is he living in to even come to that position of the municipality's neglect when it is government who controls the means to alleviate this situation. And we hope that they don't play blame game and understand that we have started to chalk up the losses and to pay compensation the neglect that was caused based on the suffering people are now in.
We're showing some of the footages there, photographs of people's homes, houses flooded, front yard there. I know you have toured the area. What are the people saying? Because obviously the PPP regime has turned a blind eye on the people and their suffering. You just mentioned compensation as well. But what's the reaction of the people on the ground who are facing this sort of situation?
Mark, my thoughts and prayers with them. It's a very troubling situation. I saw a mother in Second Alley yesterday. She's with her 2 girl children laying on the bed. Water is almost 2 feet up on her to their waist. We went in the homes of some people who are bailing water. And why this is so difficult for persons who have suffered, and even Lindeners and the rest of Guyana to appreciate. This is Linden, hilly sand and clay. Our drainage networks are one that should be sufficient enough to ensure that we don't have flooding to such a magnitude. So persons are aware that it is pure neglect that would have resulted in what we saw yesterday. And it is very upsetting, not only to them, but to the community that they would have had to endure and still are enduring such suffering because of not only neglect, but because of political pettiness. As I said before, some of this cleaning could have been done at the intervention of the council before the Linden Tongue Week period, but was not done. So people are aware of that too. And this is why we are making this firm claim that compensation must be paid to those persons who suffered.
Dr.
Anywhere
Hines?
else in this country would have been paid, and I don't think Linden is any different.
And paid handsomely too. $1 million to just some Polari. But look at the suffering of the people. Just take a look. Look at what the people are enduring there, out there in Linden, and not a PPP official there who oftentimes pretend that they care. Nobody really cares. None of them in the PPP cares about the people. Dr. Hines?
Yes, thanks, Mark. And Mr. Solomon, thank you for your continued service. I was reflecting as you were speaking that, when you were the Region 10 chairman, you had to deal with the situation with electricity, and we all know what that struggle was. And here you are now as mayor, having to deal with another enormous tragic situation there in Linden. And so my solidarity with you. But I just want to pose a question to you, and it has to do with what Linden has come to mean for the PPP in the last 4 years. It was there before, but it's been more graphic in the last 4 years. And that is the contestation for the minds and the hearts of the people of Linden. And that when a tragedy like this happens, it gives the opportunity to make the linkage between what people go through in their day-to-day habitat, their day-to-day living, and how that is linked to politics. And that your description just now of the neglect of the government, its inability to deal with the creeks and cleaning places and so on, and how that has led to this. I want to ask if you intend that once this subsides, to really speak to the hearts and the minds of Linden people. I'm not saying that you're not doing that on a day-to-day basis, but to recognize that when a tragedy like this happens, that it is the ideal moment to have a particular kind of conversation with people about their own humanity and their own humanness or lack of respect for their humanness by those who are in power. In a sense, what I'm asking is, are you prepared to add another element to your conversation with your people in Linden about the relationship between their humanity and those who are trying to manipulate the region and the tongue for political purposes?
Certainly, that times. And I tell you certainly without hesitation, because I had a conversation with the same young man yesterday as I toured the suffering areas and communities that made the Facebook claim that Minister Ramson is saying there's development in Linden. And I told him right there, he's in the floodwater. I said, they gone home.
Mm-hmm.
Who's here? Where is the development? You ain't
Yes. Yes.
Family in water. So the conversation, you're right, must be to the consciousness of people to appreciate outside of the transactional behavior and the cosmetic things that the government is doing. There's a depth to their behavior, especially in Linden. And it goes even beyond the politics that you mentioned, that I will take that conversation at times. Not only in the ideological sense of what is before us as a nation, treatment, government, that is more respect for the rights of citizens. But you and I know that, guys, that the history of this town is one that bitters the PPP, especially in this particular mountain in 1964. And those things play themselves out subtly. See that in terms of how Linden continue to be treated then in the very mountain of now of what was called the Wismar massacre. You know, we understand, and you know, people many times don't want to believe those history, and we must remember that I'm bringing it up today, because many persons would have forgotten that it was at that time in 64, this week, this particular weekend, that we had this sort of incident in Linden, that to this date, this government, through its ideological approach to dealing with Linden, still holds some sort of brief. So we know how to approach our people, Dr. Hines, on many levels, as the behavior of the People's Progressive Party, in terms of having them to understand that the treatment out to them is more than a transactional and cosmetic approach, but it's one foundational to how the PPP sees and values them as a people.
Well said, Mayor of Linden. His Worship, Sharma Solomon, is with us, giving us a big, quick update as to what's happening there. We know that the PPP has turned its eyes on the people, turned its back on the people of Linden. We are hearing some ridiculous report that the PPPC has dispatched this agents. They have not dispatched anyone. They have turned their backs on the people of Linden, as they have done to the people of Guyana. I don't know, Dr. Hines, if you have a final question for His Worship the Mayor, Solomon?
Well, not a question for him, but more of a message. I, read with much, but I don't get sad anymore. But I read with much anger the attempt to physically assault, or perhaps more than attempt to assault Vanessa Kisoon by an agent of the PPP there on air, and I was most angered by that, and I just want to ask the mayor to convey my solidarity, our solidarity with Sister Vanessa, and to really say also to give the mayor this message that some of our Black people are going crazy, and at some point we'll have to really talk with them very, very seriously. I am for, Mr. Mayor, people having their own political affiliation. If they want to be PPP, that's your business. But to want to beat up a sister for your political masters is unacceptable. It's unacceptable. And I think at some point we have to have a serious conversations with these brothers, because they're mostly brothers, and they're putting along some sisters with them who are denigrating our community and bringing our dignity, our collective dignity, under assault. If you want to be a slave again, go do that as an individual, but do not try to carry our people back into slavery. And this business about assaulting women in private, in domestic affairs, we're now seeing that it is now becoming part of the modus operandi of the government. So I just want to give our solidarity with Sister Vanessa and ask you to take that message back to her and to the people of Linden.
Let me just thank you so much for that. I echo the very same thing. You spoke on behalf of all of us here. And let me just recognize the councillor, former member of parliament, Vanessa Kisoon, who is in the audience there.
She's in the audience. Okay.
Good morning to you, Ms. Kisoon, and speedy recovery to your sister. And hope that you're feeling better. I wouldn't call them agents of the PPP. I just call them enablers, la puppies of the PPP, because we know even in Brooklyn, they do have some of the enablers, and we've got to keep an eye on those enablers, not only in Brooklyn or New Jersey or in Linden or all around. We got to keep an eye on those enablers. Mr. Mayor, I know you have a busy schedule there, dealing with the people and dealing with the flood in Linden. I hope the people, their eyes are open, wide open. You spoke about having a chat with that young man who did a video. I'm not sure if they were paid or how much they were paid to do that video by a hustler to claim that things are all honky-dory in Linden. And less than 24 hours, this is what we're having in Linden, as is on the photograph there, in the photograph on the screen. Mr. Mayor, your parting words for now, as you offer some sort of hope for the people of Linden. Sir?
Well, the hope is that as a people who've always demonstrated resilience, we will certainly overcome this, as we have so many challenges in the past. We have so far started to organize our people as we have done in the past, mobilize the resources to get some support in. We are very encouraged by the thoughts and prayers expressed by persons across Linden and Guyana and the world in relation to what occurred in our community. But I'd like to also say, Mark, that it is here that we want to recognize where government must ensure that local government is allowed to work and governance in this country is allowed to work by giving resources that are needed for us to be able to do our jobs so that people can get the relief. Because if they don't, at the end of this, people do suffer. And in reference to the disrespect of our activists, those things are not going to deter us. We will continue to do our work. I know Councillor Kisoon is very our commitment to do our job. Our council is committed to ensure that we provide for the people right, proper and strong representation. And that in itself is a sort of hope that we want to continue to give people, that we will continue to bring that sort of representation on their behalf.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. And Dr. Hines, you want to have that closing word for the mayor? Or is that
No. I think we ought to let the mayor go on and deal with that crisis that is there.
Yeah.
And
Mr. Mayor,
thank him for coming on and sharing with us.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. We are with you. We are with you. We are with the people of Linden as well, and continue doing what you guys are doing out there for the people of Linden and by extension region number 10. Thank you so much, sir.
Have a blessed one.
Yeah. All right. Is worship there, the mayor of Linden, Sharma Kosia Solomon, I believe. Yeah, his middle name. Dr. David Hines, as we prepare to wrap up, any word, any latest on the meals for Mr. Amsterdam, Kadaki Amsterdam?
No, I have not gotten any recent report, but as soon as I come off here, I'm heading down there to try to rectify that situation and to make sure that the brother is adequately that his meals and the arrangements for his meals is adequately facilitated by the police.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hines, for sitting in with me. We co-host this program. At times it shows that it seems as though I'm in control. I don't know, sometimes I can't help myself. And Dr. Hines wrestled it back from me, but it was a healthy, I hope it was healthy and informative for all of our viewers outside of Guyana, inside of Guyana, wherever you are, in England, in the US, in Barbados, Blackbush, Pola, Linden, wherever you are, Buxton. We are hoping that Kadaki Amsterdam, good sense will prevail, and that we can see some people in front of the police station protesting the release of Mr. Amsterdam, calling for the release of Mr. Amsterdam. Enough is enough. And Madhya, Civic is saying, Madhya, too, good morning to the folks in Madhya. But Dr. Hines, before we go, Congressman Jonathan Jackson, who is the son of civil rights leader in the U.S., the Reverend Jesse Jackson. Before, in your closing remarks, but I want to take our listeners back to this tape, this famous tape right now.
Thank you so much for that. But if I could have a point of privilege, this is a family dialogue. If one person wants to talk longer, I am available to listen. So we're going to do this like we're sitting in the kitchen. I want to hear from you. I want to know the challenges. And so I'm not here representing your government. I'm here as a representative from my district, or the 1st District of Illinois, and I want to hear from you. And I hope you would be as candid as you can. Some people are going to take longer because they have more to say, and I appreciate that. So in that spirit, I thank you.
Dr. Hines, as we prepare to close off, let's deal with that. Your take on what you just heard there, sir.
Explosive. And Mark, you and I have spent a lot of time in the United States, and I think we have a good understanding of the African American community. And there is something in Black political science that we call link faith. And that is that our faiths are linked wherever we are. Whether we are in the United States, whether we are in the Caribbean, in Africa, in Europe, Asia, we are linked faith. And the PPP really, and you know, this thing gets me going. The PPP really believe that Black people stupid, as we say in Guyana, stupid, that you can watch Jonathan Jackson and bring him here to Guyana and believe you can bring him here and make him a puppet and for him to sing your praises and to neglect the peoples with whom his faith and his people faith are linked. And that they must have been laughing the night at Linden. Look how we get this black fool to come from America. And look how he's singing we praises and turning his back and skinning his ass on Black people here in Guyana. And it is that simplistic, arrogant, and racist attitude to the Black mind that gets me so crazy. And Brother Jonathan Jackson was able to manage them in a serious way, in effect saying to Kwame and the others, we are no fool. I am no fool. I understand what's happening in Guyana. I was observing protocol all the time, but I am not a fool. And so this thing of believing that our people can be bought and sold as chattel continues under the PPP. They really believe they could buy and sell Jonathan Jackson. They really believe that, so that they can know when he leaves, laugh at us. Look, your own Black man come here and you praise our way. You see? And so this is a significant moment. This is a significant moment when that brother said, this is a family affair. Do not underestimate the use of that word family. We are family. That's what I call it, kit and kin. Jonathan Jackson calls it family. We are family, and I don't give a damn. We have several levels of family. There's the Guyanese family. There's the African Guyanese family, Indian, the Amerindian Guyanese family. There's the Caribbean family. There is the African diasporan family. There's the Black family. There are levels of family. And I am not afraid to say that the Black family is as important of all my other families. And that Jonathan Jackson was able to say that and to poke his fingers back in the eyes of this government reminds me of when Nelson Mandela visited the United States after he was released from prison, and the announcer, the doyen of American broadcast, tried to tell him that he should not be friends with Fidel Castro and he should not be friends with Yasser Arafat and so on. And Mandela stood up erect like an African king in his seat and said, Mr. Coppell, you do not tell me who my friend should be. You do not tell me who my friend should be. The Mighty Sparrows captured it in a calypso. I feel proud to be a black man, that the attempt to use a black man against his brethren and sister in Guyana has once again backfired. I hope they learn, but they will never learn, because somewhere in the inner and outer reaches of their minds, we are still not full human. But I'm here to say to them, so long as there are people like me and people like you and people like our audience here, we will always assert our blackness, our black equality with the strongest voice. Our people sometimes mute their blackness. And I am here to say that part of my activism is to get black people to stop muting your blackness. Hold your blackness up as you hold your Guyanese-ness and your Caribbean-ness and your humanity. They are all important to you. And so what a beautiful moment to see this brother with power, because he comes from the great United States and the great African American tradition, to stand up there and say to these damn fools that we are people too, we are equal. I love that brother. I love my people. I love my blackness, and our collective blackness is also as important. Do not give it up. Do not stifle it, because every time you stifle it, you give them another opportunity to dig the grave of enslavement to put us all back in there. Mark, I want to thank our people. Some of you have taken the initiative and you have contacted us about a defense fund for Brother Kadaki. We didn't make an appeal. Some of you took that initiative and you have sent your contributions for a defense fund for Brother Kadaki. I want to thank you all. Sometimes I think, frustrations, we beat up our people. We feel that they don't have sense and they don't have initiative. Yes, it would have been nice
Your imprisonment
to have 200 people, 300 people in front of the station. But I want to thank those individuals who have taken the initiative without a call from us and to initiate a defense fund for Brother Kadaki. I love you all. I love you all.
We can definitely talk about that, and maybe later on your show and my show as well. And we're hoping that we'll get some more news and positive news that Kadaki Amsterdam will be released. And we want those in the corrupt PPP regime to know that good sense should prevail. And I really do mean good sense should prevail, because there's no reason for Kadaki Amsterdam to be held overnight in a lockup, in a filthy cell, because of his political views and vindictiveness and spite from a corrupt, racist PPP regime. That is what it's about. Dr. David Hines, I want to thank you so much for sitting in alongside me for us to host this program on behalf of our brother in the struggle and political prisoner, Kadaki Amsterdam. I thank you so much. But before we go, let's go to this footage of what you mentioned earlier, Ted Koppel's interview with President Nelson Mandela.
and many of the others is that you were not isolated. Even at the times when they wanted to keep you isolated, you still knew what was going on in the outside world. How?
Well, it's very difficult in prison not to isolate prisoners, especially political prisoners, because where there are human beings and where men fight back for their rights and for their dignity, there will immediately be people who will admire you. And that admiration will be shown by specific acts, which shows that people think that your stand is correct. The first isolation, first punishment which I got was when I was given a newspaper by order And he had been doing this over some time. But one day, the authorities must have got a tip, and they came to my cell and raided and found the paper, and they sent me to isolation.
All right, that's and basically a little glimpse of what Nelson Mandela sharing his experience in prison, what it's all about, and even as we listen to those thoughts from the late President Nelson Mandela, um, Kadaki Amsterdam is currently in a filthy cell, compliments of the corrupt, racist PPP regime. And if Irfan Ali and Jack Dale, the likes of Jack Dale, they're looking at and listening to this show right now, let good sense prevail. That's all. Guyana, it's like a boiling pot. And if they can see that Guyana is a boiling pot, the people of Linden are upset. The people in Ituna are upset. The people on the quarantine are upset. The people in Georgetown are upset. All across Guyana, people are upset. It is a boiling pot. Let good sense prevail. That's all I'm saying. Let good sense prevail. Dr. Hines, you'll have the last take for now. Go ahead.
Mark, eternal thanks to you. We've been in conversation. From the time Kadaki was arrested, you, opposition leader Norton, and so many other people have not been able to take all the calls. As you noticed during the course of this period, the phone keeps ringing all the time. Trade unionists and our friend Lincoln Lewis has been calling. He called while we were on the program. People from all walks of life have been calling. And I think that is as golden as anything, because we all need that solidarity. We all need that support. On behalf of Buxton, I take the liberty of speaking for the village here. On behalf of the WPA, I would like to thank you all for the continued support that you have given to the cause of Brother Kadaki. Support means everything. Everything, as Nelson Mandela says, when you are in prison as a political prisoner, your greatest form of survival behind those dark walls is to know that there are bright lights that are being lit by your people, some who don't know you, some who know you, to keep hope alive, as Jesse Jackson would say. Once we keep hope alive, we are going to get to the end of the road. That beautiful shore of freedom beckons, but we are only going to get there when all of us link our hands and our hearts across the waters, across the seas, across God's air, and hold them together, because Jah would never give the power to a bald head. Jah would never give the power to a bald head. Only the righteous shall see the inner reaches of beauty, God's beauty that he has given us as a gift.
Dr. David Hines, I'm listening to you, and I can just tell that as a little boy growing up in Buxton, you went to that big church on the public road there, right? You were listening to some of the preachers there. Even under the circumstances, we do have to put a smile on our faces. The people in Linden, what they're enduring, the people in Georgetown, all across Guyana at the hands of a wicked and corrupt PPP regime. And so to Brother Kadaki, Amsterdam, we are with you. Thousands of people are with you. We are in solidarity. And we know that no crime was committed, as much as the police force put whatever they interpret as evidence out there. If you are investigating a matter, and I want the listening audience to see this, if they are investigating a matter, why put out what you have, some frivolous piece of evidence that you have in the public domain? This is a political matter. Kadaki Amsterdam is being persecuted, and therefore, based on the political persecution, it is fitting to describe him as a political prisoner. You will be hearing from me. I'd like to make a personal donation on behalf of my family, so that during the next couple of hours, that Brother Kadaki can get something in terms of transportation. It's not easy. I've been there dozens of times. I know what it's like in the lockups. It is not easy at all for people relatives and friends to travel from Buxton all the way to Georgetown at this point in time. So you will be hearing from me for a personal donation. And later on your program, I'm sure you will talk on other things as to how folks can contribute to that. But Dr. David Hines, I thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to have full access to all of your platform. That is what you call trust. Rest assured that when you prepare to sign in this evening for your show, you'll have to ask me permission. And I may do like what that Kisoon lady did with that one seat. She doesn't want to give it back up. So I may have to do access to your own pages. But Dr. Hanks, thank you so much for your time. And thank you for being there for Kadaki as well and for all that you do. And I noticed some of the trench crappos are busy this morning, but the minute they come on with their crap, they go right in the trenches. I have no patience, no tolerance for the trench crappo. Thank you so much, Dr. Hines.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you.
And to all of our listeners as well, we thank you all so much. God bless you. And Kadaki will be free. Mark my word, Kadaki will be free. Let good sense prevail. We're out of here until 7 o'clock. David Hines is on with his show, and I'll be back this evening with Straight Up. But 11 o'clock, don't forget, Paul Slow and Clinton is on. They're on with their show. Go into their classrooms. They have a lot to talk about. Paul Slow and Clinton Conway. Sorry. All right, so I'm out of here. God bless you. If it's your birthday, happy birthday. Maud Veer celebrated her birth anniversary yesterday. Belated birthday greetings to you, Maud. If you're a little under the weather, we pray for you as well. Speedy recovery. And to the people of Linden, my gosh, we are with you. Despite the fact that the PPP, the corrupt PPP regime, they have turned a blind eye on the people of Linden. Shame on the corrupt PPP regime. Shame on Mark Phillips for what he said. He has absolutely no heart. Shame on him. I'm out of here, guys. See you guys later. Bye-bye. Free Kadaki, Amsterdam. Free Kadaki, Amsterdam. Let good sense prevail. Bye-bye.